So welcome to class number 8 of FDI. We're going over mind. There we go. So, quick agenda. We're going to go through our class updates, then we're going to discuss the subconscious, discuss language, go into our homework assignment for the week, quick discussion of the design, professional programs, and tales from the front. I know people in the chat want to know what El Nivlador looks like behind the mask. You will never know. That goes against what El Nivlador is all about. So, quick update. So, FDI Live is happening November 23rd. For those of you who don't know, that is our in-person class that we're doing at Edmonton Unlimited here in the city of Edmonton. So if you want to get a chance to hang out and meet up with other members of the FDI community, this will be your opportunity. That is happening next week. For all of you who can't join us, the class stream will be sticking to the usual schedule, but we will be in a different location, and we're going to have other people in person as well as myself. Just a second here. Let me do a quick adjustment. Here we are. Okay. So, carrying on. So, we're almost done. We're at our 8th class out of 10. It's getting to the end. So I say, taking this opportunity for this class, we're going to be getting a little weird. Oh, second here. Sorry. So, I want to also get into the current frontiers of design thinking. I want to take this opportunity to have a class where chance for me to push myself to my limits and kind of design philosophy and thought and approach that I'm taking on my side as a design professional after being in the industry for 2 decades now. Oh my God. And also to get you guys thinking about some of the upcoming trends and approaches in design. So this is going to be a little weird, a little surreal, but this will be a lot of fun. But if you're not into, people are already missing the course. Don't worry. We'll always be here in spirit. And we got 2 more classes after this one. Not done yet. So, for always, if you're not ready for a weird, surreal, cutting-edge class of the design frontiers, this might be the class for you. I'm giving you a chance to get out of here if this isn't your cup of tea. If you want something a little safer, something a little more normal, all right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. It's mind over all. Let me do it more dramatically. All right, anyways. So, we're going to be going into the subconscious and language. Don't worry, we're going somewhere exciting with this. So exciting, I'm going to tell you guys to buckle up because we're going to be getting into the weird, the surreal, the funky, the cutting edge. But, to jump into it, why are we even discussing the mind? Why are we spending an entire hour of your guys' valuable time talking about the mind? And please hold me accountable to that hour. I don't want to be better about these classes going on for too long. Well, the reason why we're going to the mind is because everything exists within the mind. Your mind is critical to understanding interactions, creating things, communication. Also, your customer's mind is also super critical. So understanding how that works is essential for being a really good designer and, creating cutting-edge, exciting things. So another element is because design's about inspiring human action, it's important to understand the mind. When I was a junior designer, one of the things I realized quite quickly was a lot of the design problems we were having, we would come up with elaborate plans and strategies, and everything would make sense on paper, then we'd give it to customers and it just wouldn't work. But we'd see all these other bizarre approaches that people were just loving. So I'm like, look at my conclusion with that was, I'm like, look at whatever we're trying to rationally think about here, it's just not working. We need to do a better job of understanding what's going on in our customers' minds and also in our minds, so we know how to approach that. That's what we're getting into today. So this is about imagination, efficiency, play, and problem solving. How's my mic volume, by the way? Can check. Can you let me know how's my mic volume? Okay, cool. Carrying on. So we're going to be diving into the difference between your Salvador Dali's and your Robert Bateman's. That painting on the left, as surreal it is, that's a $10 million painting. The one on the right is a $10,000 painting. They're both artists that are very capable. These are respected professionals. But as you can tell, the one on the left's a lot weirder and a lot more captivating, a lot more interesting. This is also like in pop culture. This is the difference between, like, you know, the work of Alan Moore. We got his Killing Joke comic there on the right, that or left, sorry, that was written about 40 years ago, I want to say, and it's still considered the standard archetype for a Joker Batman story. We have a much more modern approach on the right, which is the Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo, and Jonathan Glapion. I'm probably mispronouncing those names a little bit. New 52 story of Death in the Family. This is a very popular story, but it just didn't have the same staying power to the Killing Joke. This whole, they have a subplot where the Joker removes his face and kidnaps the Bat family. Very popular when it came out and is now quickly starting to fade away into memory, while the Killing Joke is still relevant 40 years later. Yes, I hear great things about the new Batman Absolute comics. I'm excited to check those out myself. The Absolute universe is doing some interesting stuff. But also, to dive into this a bit more, this is the difference between a J.R. Tolkien and a Dan Brown. They're both popular, but man, no one's getting Dan Brown tattoos. In design, this is the difference between your Shigeru Miyamoto and everyone else. Bit of an exaggeration there, but come on. Miyamoto's very good, and some of the stuff we're talking about you'll actually see in a lot of Miyamoto's design practice, and if you look at interviews for people who've worked directly with him. So, before we can get into the concept of subconscious and language, I want us to define the mind. This thing we're talking about, what exactly is it? So, we're going to go into your mind and your mind in the context of what reality is. That's ultimately what a lot of what your mind does. It defines your reality. So, jumping into the deep end here, what we're getting into is, so for mind versus reality, I'm just thinking of the best way to approach this. So, think of your reality as effectively being a type of simulation. This sounds a lot like what they had in the Matrix, and also a lot of, junior philosophy undergraduate studies. But it is actual thing is that, like, our body takes in sensory inputs and filters that out and then constructs your reality based on sight, touch, temperature, countless elements of different sensory inputs. Your brain is abstracting those out to construct your reality. That's very important to some of the approaches we'll be having going forwards. So once it's taken all that information, your brain recognizes patterns, abstracts a model based on those patterns. A lot of what we know as our kind of reality is an abstraction of our sensory inputs. Your brain's extremely good at doing this. Your brain is fascinatingly excellent at problem solving. It is so good at this, we actually don't understand. There's a current problem in academic circles called the relevance realization problem, and that is, how does your brain understand what is relevant to its pursuits, its goals, and its day-to-day activity? It's one of those problems. I honestly think this might be an almost impossible problem to solve, because it's like, there's an old Taoist phrase of the eye can see everything except for the eye. It's very difficult for the brain to actually understand how the brain works. But it's clearly doing something, and this is at the foundation of a lot of those design problems I was talking about earlier. So I want to give you an example of this kind of mental hardware architecture in mind. So if anyone's familiar with this illusion, don't spoil it in the chat. But what we have here are a series of dots. For a lot of people, they look at this and they're like, well, that's just like a weird Rorschach test. And I'm going to give you a bit of information to help give it relevance. And once you get that relevance is achieved, the image will suddenly snap into focus for you. So what this is, what you're looking at, this isn't a series of dots. This is a picture of a dog. The dog's head is in the center of the image. It is sniffing the ground. Its body goes off from the center off to the right. Most of you are now probably seeing a Dalmatian sitting there or standing there sniffing the ground. It's in a park. There's a tree. It is giving that relevance, that little bit of information. Your brain was able to take all that chaotic information, snap it into focus, and create something of a useful abstraction out of that chaotic information. This is what our brain is constantly doing. It is one of the chief elements that your brain actually does. Is take all the sensory information and you're snapping a reality out of it. And how it does this is really key to some of the more forward-thinking and forward approaches we're taking to design. All right, so I want to get into a bit of kind of the overall architecture or structure of the mind to help give this a bit more, to give you guys a better understanding of exactly how this flow of information operates. Now, this is going to be a huge simplification because we could spend years going into how the brain works, but I'm going to abstract it out for you guys. So think of your brain and the flow of information in your brain as having three levels. Your conscious, your subconscious, and your autonervous. So communication goes from the autonervous to the subconscious to the conscious mind. To help classify these a little bit more, think of your conscious as being logic. That's your rational mind. That's 1 + 1 = 2. That's trained schedules. It's organized. It's planning. It's data. It's information. The subconscious, however, focuses on patterns. It is abstraction. It is your subconscious is telling your mind, this is what reality is. This is how it's structured. And the subconscious is wickedly good at recognizing patterns and communicating their relevant information up to the conscious mind. And then you have your autonervous system. That is the part of your brain that is driving your heartbeat, your flow of your blood, your breathing, the operation of your liver. So that effectively runs your survival. So we've got our autonervous system at the base. That keeps you running. That goes up to your subconscious mind, because your autonervous system is driving all of that sensory information that we're taking in. It says, hey, subconscious, here's a bunch of stuff for you. Your subconscious looks at that and says, I know what's important here. And then it communicates that up to the conscious mind, the logical, rational mind. That flow of information primarily happens from the autonervous up to the subconscious to the conscious. It is technically two-way, but the communication from the conscious downward is very limited. So I generally try to think of this as primarily as kind of a one-way street. See, I think my subconscious is broken because patterns are hard to recognize. So creator 438, if you're able to read and operate, your subconscious is working just fine. We exist in a infinitely complex soup of data and information. If you're able to put on socks and navigate down a flight of steps, your subconscious is doing great. That's all the stuff your subconscious is doing, and we get into some of the creativity elements of it as well. All right. So to get clarified a little bit more, model I always find useful for this is if your mind was a car, your conscious mind would be the body of the car, the subconscious would be the engine of the car, and the autonervous system would be the gas. The body of the car is the thing we all notice, but it has very little to do with the actual operation of the car. A lot of that's driven by the engine, which is hidden and obscured from most people. And none of that works unless it's got gas in the tank. So general kind of description of like, hey, like when you're thinking about how your brain works, a lot of what's driving your reality, how you approach problems, how you perceive problems, and also if you're a customer, is that subconscious mind. So, since it's so important, we're going to be diving into the subconscious. So, your subconscious mind. So, as we said, your subconscious is going to be handling pattern recognition. But in order to recognize a pattern, your subconscious needs information to act upon. Also, your subconscious generally operates in the domain of hunches and feelings. Your subconscious does not communicate to the conscious mind via being like, hey, here's a specific thing. It's like, here's an abstract, weird idea or a concept or a feeling or an overall hunch. That gut instinct you get sometimes, that's your subconscious mind telling your conscious mind, hey man, something important's going on. But I can't tell you exactly what it is because it just doesn't deal within the realm of concrete, easily defined concepts. It's more in depth. It's more complex than that. Interesting thing as well is that you can suppress your subconscious mind by engaging a rational mind too much. So generally, while your subconscious mind is wicked good at recognizing patterns through massive levels of abstraction, you can actually suppress that by thinking about a problem too hard. So in a certain way, as I'm thinking about a problem too much consciously, I've actually suppressed my subconscious's ability to properly process the problem. You'll actually see really top tier creators are aware of this and they will lean into this. This is the difference between your Alan Moores and your Scott Snyders. No disrespect to Scott Snyder, he's very good. As I said, like, Alan Moore has a wonderful ability of writing stories that just live on for decades and decades, and go on to influence a lot of other creators. And that's the same thing with kind of Shigeru Miyamoto. He has a lot of weird ideas, but a lot of this is him engaging with that subconscious level of thinking. All right. Oh, we got some good reading recommendations in the chat. That's excellent. As for always, I wanted to ask you guys, if you ever have a reading recommendation for me, please send it my way. I love to read. So the more information I get, the better. And this is actually, when I go into this depiction we have here, there's a particular, I think it's particularly would be useful or telling or an excellent depiction that it shows here the subconscious, the person engaging with their subconscious is sitting on top of a book. The subconscious needs information. You need to do research. You want to be doing reading. You want to be doing studying. Engage in the world, not just like, it's not just a book, but it's also going out there, trying new experiences, all that stuff. All that's giving your subconscious data that I can turn over and start to recognize those patterns from. So I want to give you a really interesting example of how good your subconscious is at recognizing patterns. So this was an experiment done where they gave a bunch of people a giant table of random numbers. All these random numbers were from different randomization seeds. So in a computer, in order to get a random number, you have to feed that computer a particular seed number that it uses to generate all the random numbers going forward. And usually that seed number is going to be driven by the clock in a computer or something like that. But so you effectively had a series, they had a bunch of people, gave them a big list of random numbers, all of which were generated themselves from other random numbers. And then they divided those people into two groups. They said, look, for one group, we want you to think about which of these numbers go together. The other group, they said, we want you to feel which of these numbers go together. The group that was thinking it effectively was not able to, they were not able to classify the numbers in any useful structure. The group that was feeling which numbers went together actually sorted them by the random seed. No idea how they're able to do this, but it was an experiment they were able to test and replicate. And they also found that with that group that you asked them, hey, which of these numbers feel they should belong together? When you then ask them, okay, we now want you to think about this, that ability to sort the numbers completely went away. This is the thing with like that power of the subconscious. It's astoundingly good at recognizing patterns that we just cannot consciously recognize. And this is, one of the things you want to tap into for dealing with creativity and more advanced kind of problem solving within the design process. So we're going to jump into that a little bit. So a couple examples of this process that we've seen. This process gets referenced constantly in pop culture. This is Neo seeing the form of the Matrix. Remember, at the start, he does a whole bunch of studying. The sequence where he's getting different programs uploaded to his brain. He's studying kung fu and all that other stuff. But he goes through all that data, goes on a little adventure, sets a goal, tests himself against that goal, and eventually has a point where his subconscious tells him, wait a minute, this is the actual pattern of the world. This is what's actually going on. This model is represented in countless fictional stories and works of art. Another really good example, is there a source for the random numbers thing? There is a source. I'm going to have to track that down. I'll let you guys know about the source for the random numbers thing. Thank you for asking about that. Another good example of this kind of representation of this within pop culture, the famous Star Wars, or the Death Star trench run from Star Wars, where you have an army of the rebels going against the giant space station, the Death Star. This is effectively, they have got, think of the Death Star as being a fortress of rational logic and science. The rebels are going against it with a smaller army that is ultimately, again, it's rational, it's science, it's tools, it's logic. How they ultimately dismantle the Death Star is during that, the trench run with Luke Skywalker. He's got to make that one shot, and Obi-Wan Kenobi from beyond tells him, stop worrying about, do not approach this as a rational problem. Listen to your subconscious. Use the Force is effectively you engaging with an element of your subconscious. And when he's able to stop thinking about the problem so directly, he's able to actually see that solution through to the problem. That's an excellent model for how your subconscious engages with problems and presents solutions to those problems. All right, carrying on. So, now that we've talked about the subconscious so much, how do we actually utilize the subconscious? Actually, I'm going to take a quick pause here. For those of us in the video chat with me here, does anyone have any questions? Please remember to raise your hand if you have any questions. All right. We're carrying on here. All right, so how do we utilize the subconscious? And of course, actually, sorry, just maybe take another quick pause here. Reminder, if in chat, if you've got any questions, post them in chat with 4 question marks above it. Let me just make it quick. I realize our framing's a little off here. Come here. Okay, cool. All right. So, how do we utilize the subconscious? So, your subconscious needs information to recognize patterns. It will also work on elements that are important to you. This is one of the things that's kind of interesting with the subconscious, is it will, because it's looking for patterns, it is looking for patterns that are particularly relevant. So it's kind of hard to, if you're engaging in some kind of subconscious problem solving, you can't really say, okay, I need you to do this. It's best to approach this from a perspective of, I think I know what's important here, but I'm going to listen to my subconscious, and my subconscious will actually tell me what the actual root element that I should be addressing is. And sometimes this is just something that will be a little bit beyond your control, but I always find it's been a really useful exercise. One of the, actually just a quick example of this is so one of the things is I'll do as part of my design practice is I will incorporate meditation into my design thinking as I'm working on a tough design problem. And I was working on a tough design problem. I'm like, all right, can't figure this out. I'm just going to meditate on it. We're going to see what happens. And as I was meditating, I kept seeing an image of my desk. And I was like, well, it's not really what I was thinking about, but where are we going with this? Eventually it was, what I realized is that all of the items on my desk were slightly misaligned. So I was sitting in what was ultimately a very uncomfortable position that was causing a lot of discomfort in my shoulder. once I actually realigned my desk and I'm like, okay, now I'm actually much more comfortable at my desk, then I was like, okay, meditated again. I'm like, okay, now that I've solved that problem, which was a thing that was really bugging me, I just didn't know what it was, then I was able to actually dive into kind of like those deeper design problems I was actually trying to really focus on. But it was an interesting thing. Your subconscious will always source things that are important to you, but they aren't necessarily what you might be looking for. So, see, going on here. So if you can quiet your conscious mind, your subconscious mind will begin to tell you things. So this is effectively putting in practices of things like meditation, which we're going to be getting into here. So one of the most effective tools for utilizing your subconscious mind is a practice of meditation. I know we're getting into some very surreal stuff here. So I always kind of love this picture of someone in a deep meditative state. So generally, I would define meditation as an activity where you quiet your conscious mind while maintaining soft focus. So, a couple of depictions of meditation. So, meditation, a lot of people like to think of it as something like this. A monk sitting there against nature and just lost deeply in thought. But meditation is also going for a walk in the woods. That's a meditative practice. I know one person, whenever, as we start to incorporate these kinds of subconscious problem solving, one of our designers, she just goes off and starts cleaning her house. For her, that's very meditative for her. That's just where a lot of her creative thoughts come from. There's another designer who's a very successful indie designer, said he would go to the gym, work out really hard, then would sit in the hot tub, and then ideas would just start to come to him. And the funny thing, he's like, the hot tub at his gym, it had to go in for maintenance, and when it did, there's a significant decline in his productivity because he didn't have that path to his subconscious that he was so comfortable with. And of course, I think a really common one that a lot of us do daily meditation is the morning shower. It is a cliche in game development, the number of problems that are solved in morning showers. Like the number of times you'll have like a programmer's like, oh, I've been working on this thing for 18 hours, I just can't figure it out. They go home, go to sleep, wake up, have a shower, and instantly the solution just pops into their head. They're engaged in a meditative activity of the shower. They're not really thinking about anything. They've got a very casual activity. That quiets their conscious mind, allows the subconscious to really kind of stew on stuff, and then the subconscious presents the solutions to them. Yes, it is very funny. Like I think there's probably been a fair number of discussions about people actually trying to think about like, should we just incorporate showers into our development like approach? I don't think you should. I think you can substitute a shower with just a nice walk or having a relaxing cup of coffee or something like that. For me, my preferred meditative tool is a nice cup of coffee while I'm staring at a lake or at a tree or something like that. I'll just sit there and just hang out, relax, and like it's just crazy. Like honestly, without fail, solutions just start to appear, and they're usually really interesting, very effective ones as well. And this has actually become a scheduled element of of game development I engage with now. All right, so how would we more directly apply this to video game design? So whenever you've got a difficult problem and you're really stumped and you're stuck, stop, just get away from it, spend some time meditating. And like I said, this is something I've been implementing with my current design team. We've been finding this incredibly effective. And it's not like it's not, literally sitting down in front of a banyan tree in nature, but some people are like, I'm going to go for a bike ride. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm getting away from the desk for a little bit. I'm going to clean my apartment. I'm going to do a crossword puzzle. I'm just going to I've tried solving this problem rationally. It's just not working. I'm going to back away, stop thinking about it, let the subconscious work on it, then I'll get back to you. And like it's kind of hilarious, like without fail, whenever I've got like a seemingly impossible design problem, we're like, well, we've got to redo everything. I'm like, what? Let me go have a cup of coffee and stare at a lake for a little while. And I'll generally be like, oh, okay, yeah, there we go. I'll come back and say, okay, I know we think this is a 50-step process, but actually we've made a miscalculation at step 2. We fix that miscalculation. Now everything's going to work. Perhaps not work 100%, but we got this problem 80% solved now, which is a lot more effective. So this is also, I want to dive into this depiction because this is a wonderful depiction of the meditative process of, you've got this, like this is Siddhartha, the kind of the canonical Buddha. So he's sitting there in nature. There's water. There's a tree. There's the light. There's a glow of enlightenment coming from his head. He is, in a meditative state. Just, this is I think a wonderful depiction of would it be archetypical meditation. All right, so putting in an effective application of meditation into the design process. First thing, study hard. There is a common factor between everyone who is a high performer, and they read a lot and they study a lot. It's just this is, from Jackie Chan to Warren Buffett to Bill Gates to Steve Jobs. These people read a ton because they're giving their subconscious a lot of information to cook over, and they're also able to pull from a lot of the wisdom of people who've come before them. This is a common reason. Like this, I got the depiction here of Gandalf. I don't know where he's studying exactly, but this is him studying about the rings of power. Like Gandalf represents a subconscious solution to problems. That is why he's able to engage in those miraculous, almost magical solutions. But a lot of what he does, he spends much time studying in old, dark libraries. He does that, and then he goes off and meditates in nature. So you got to study hard. You also have to identify a clear issue. Yes, the Library of Gondor. Thank you very much. That's also like, I could go on about mythology for friggin' ages if you let me. So you want to be studying. You also have to identify a clear issue. I really need to fix this problem. I've got a huge issue with this particular inventory system or this other system or this combat system or something like that. Your subconscious needs a specific problem. Well, it will always be working on solutions to specific problems. I said earlier, the control of the exact problem your subconscious is working on is that is hard to control, but I found it's a good thing to influence it is get very invested in the problem you're solving. The more invested in it you are, the more likely your subconscious will be to orient towards that problem. And like I said, sometimes it'll actually be pointing at a more foundational solution that you may not have been looking for, but I think it's always important to listen to the subconscious when it tells you something. So, identify a clear issue. Give yourself time to distance yourself from a problem. This is why, I said when we're doing like a meditative practice, we get away from the desk. We go away, I want to be out of my work environment because my work environment has me in a specific headspace. I got to get away from the desk, out of the office, or into a place that's just a more relaxed, clearer, and it can just clear my head. Not be thinking about something, which is where I know I'm actually starting to think about something. So it's like clear your head, meditate on the problem, that's going for a walk. Perhaps it is actual meditation. Or like I said, for me, it's having a cup of coffee, staring at a lake. Then listen to what your subconscious tells you. Generally, I find like, it'll be, if I'm working on something, meditatively, it's usually like, I'll start seeing like a specific shape or an element of the design that I hadn't thought about. And I'll be like, okay, there's something there. There's something with that specific interaction that's a problem or a solution or something. And I'll just kind of walk and just kind of think about it and be like, okay, what is it about the reload system? Or what is it about our doors? But there's something there. And then generally be like, oh, that's the problem. Because the doors aren't working with a specific system, because of the specific issue, that is a knock-on effect here, which knocks on here, which knocks on here. And that's our actual problem over here, had its source over here with the doors. This is where we come in and be like, okay, I know we thought this was a 50-step process. We've actually got our doors improperly calibrated, or something like that, Another thing is I say, embrace weird and dumb ideas, but carefully vet them. I really like it when we're in a design discussion, a designer sticks with their hand and go, okay, crazy idea, or okay, this is going to be real dumb, because I know that what it is their subconscious has told them something that is uh, an approach to the problem we haven't been considering. One of my favorite examples of this was from a Blizzard design meeting where I think they were discussing, I think it was a Warlock character and their abilities. And the person said, well, it'd be really cool if this Warlock character could, the Warlock class could call in a military airstrike. And everyone's like, well, that makes no sense because, like, you know, you don't have airstrikes. But like, okay, but wait a minute. They could pull in like phantoms or something like that, and they actually had this, they came with this neat idea of this of the warlock or the conjurer, I forget the exact class, but them being able to manifest spirits and have a relationship with spirits and use those spirits for like an airstrike. But that came from like a dumb idea of like them being able to conjure, you know, B-52 bombers, which of course made no sense. But within that was a kernel of an actually really interesting idea. All right. So, once again, going into the subconscious versus the conscious. So, this is the thing is that when you're dealing with your subconscious, this is the realm of Salvador Dali and all this kind of really weird stuff that we find very fascinating. This is your Shigeru Miyamoto. This is your H.R. Geiger. This is your Alan Moore. They spend a lot of times engaging with their subconscious and listening to what their subconscious tells them. There's very little about that image on the left that is rational, but it's deeply emotional. It is deeply mythological. It is deeply abstract. This is where you get that kind of artistic brilliance. And there isn't really a formula for it, but it appears to be a common path of behavior or model of behavior. And then we have our Robert Bateman on the right side of the screen, and that is excellent rendering there, but it is also one that is very much driven by the rational mind. It is about being very specific, very exact, very kind of measurable. But like I said, there's a reason why the one on the left is worth $10 million, the one on the right is worth $10,000. So again, this is again, as I said, this is kind of the domain of like Shigeru Miyamoto and Alan Moore. Very little of Miyamoto's designs make sense on paper. Like you're a plumber in a turtle kingdom, you eat mushrooms and that causes you to change your size. This is all just really weird stuff, but it's also brilliant. And like now like God, how many billions of dollars is Mario Brothers worth? It's a very successful franchise, and like that's Mario, that's Zelda. God, what else has Miyamoto done? Those are his big ones. I think he did Nintendogs. I think it was one of his as well. Star Fox. He's done a lot. He's done a lot. Pikmin. Thank you very much. I know a lot of people are talking about Masahiro Sakurai. Masahiro Sakurai is excellent. He has a wonderful YouTube channel as well. I love checking Masahiro Sakurai's stuff. I'm always learning something new there. All right. So, El Nivelador, do we have any questions from the chat? Oh, I think you might be muted. There we go. No worries. That's a good one. I usually give myself a couple of hours, but honestly, for everyone, this is going to be different. And sometimes I'll have a design problem. I'm like, I just need to be spending like a week thinking about this thing because it's so difficult and so complex, and it requires like a level of understanding that is very, very in depth. So I'll generally have to spend a lot of time studying things, researching, going off, thinking about it, going back, studying some more, going off, thinking about it. There isn't a specific formula for this. It's different for everyone. There are some creative problems I know people have been working on for like decades. There's a really interesting story about the would it be the composition of the song Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen, which is a phenomenal song, but I think he wrote that song. Um, Took him years to write it, and then he spent decades iterating on it and adjusting it until the song's final format and shape really revealed itself to him. So, this makes it a real tough thing to schedule around, but generally I found that engaging this kind of subconscious problem solving helps to um, address problems a lot more effectively. Um, Usually, like, I'll give myself a time limit. If I'm not able to come up with some kind of solution within that time limit, I'll start farming the idea out to other people in the team, being like, look, I'm stuck on this one. What do you guys think about it? Get more people thinking about the problem and asking them to think about this subconsciously. And usually by that point, they will start coming to me and being like, hey, I just thought about this. What about that? How about this approach? Well, this is going to be weird, but what if we tried this? You know? But yeah, generally give myself about 2 hours to really try to have a meaningful insight into a design problem. All right, we've got Scott. You got your hand up. Yeah, 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 yeah. Uh, oh, really? This is no. Okay, let's. Okay, okay. Actually, uh, there we go. I think I found the issue. Okay, Scott. Sorry.
Testing,
Yeah,
testing.
testing.
Yeah. Okay. Mic check. Hello. 1, 2, 3.
We
All right.
good?
Cool. Yeah.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
was asking, how when we're in an office environment or when we're working with a studio, particularly as a junior developer or designer or whatever, you know, a lot of the time, you're like this and not actually, hands on keyboard doing stuff, but the expectation might be, well, what are you doing? You're just sitting there doing nothing, right? I'm paying you by the hour. Come on, let's get some productivity, right?
Yeah.
So how do you navigate that with your superiors if they're not as enlightened, so to speak?
Oh, that is an excellent question there, Scott. Thank you. And chat, thanks for letting us know that we had a bit of an audio miscalibration there. So, best approach I found for that is that, like, what your boss really wants is reassurance and clarity. So generally, I'll say, hey, I'm working on this design problem. What I want to do is, I've been staring at my screen for a while. I'm getting nowhere with this. I'm going to go for a walk and think about it, get out of my head, give myself some space. Just kind of roll. I find it's very effective for me on design problems. If you just get away from the desk, go for a bit of a walk and think about things. See if they're willing to entertain that approach. If they aren't, um, generally I would just take a lot of coffee breaks. Like, I would just sit there. I'd get away from my desk. I'd sit there in like the cafe or something like that. Have my coffee, and just be staring off into space. Or I'd walk around the office. If you've got a boss who's being real specific about, hey, butts and seats mean productivity, which they don't, um, then I think in those cases, like, sometimes you can engage with by like listening to music or something like that. I'd say in that case you're probably in a poorly run studio and you got a lot of other problems as well then. Right now, like I'm just in a studio where everyone just understands that this is a really big part of our design process, of our development process. Even our programmers do this, and we've got receipts to back it up. Like it's coming, the game is coming together quite well. People like it, the team's happy, and we're ahead of schedule. It's great. That's a lot of successes there, and a lot of that's because like we just don't allow ourselves to. If we hit a brick wall, we're trying to figure out how we can go around it instead of just ramming headfirst through it. So Scott, I think that'd be the thing is I would go to the boss, give them a clear timeline, a clear goal you're trying to achieve, explain to them why it's important for you to get away from your desk. See how you gotta have buy-in from your superiors though. If you're not getting that level of buy-in though, try to figure out a way of getting a meditative space within your work environment. Okay. Yes, Harshad.
Um, so building on working, you're in a workplace and you have like so many other colleagues that you have to work with. Sometimes you will end up with conflicting ideas because you will spend a lot of time on an idea and you'll meditate over it and you're damn sure that this is the idea that we should go with. And it's about then putting that across. And then maybe someone has like sort of a different way of doing things, of reaching the same conclusion. So like how do you navigate that situation? I guess it gets into conflict management,
Yeah.
but how do you sort of work with that? So
Excellent question, Rashad. So there's a couple of things there. One is it's always important to be taking feedback from as many people as possible, but
okay,
at the same time, you need to have a single person who has accountability on the decision. So
right,
I know this is
okay,
like how Pixar approaches this. They'll be in a creative meeting, the director has final say, but the director gets feedback from everyone.
right,
But the
okay,
director makes a decision, that's the decision they're going with.
okay.
Because
So
otherwise, like
mhm,
everyone's pulling a project in different directions and it's just chaos. It's
okay,
like, and sometimes you've got to have a pretty intense back and forth about, okay, exactly what am I in charge of, what are you in charge of, and let's be really clear about that. We've actually like I even this is one of the things my current design team, we're having this discussion right now between like design and art, because I was taking on a lot of design elements that were like kind of 1 foot in design, 1 foot in art. It's like, wait, but like which department actually owns this decision, because we can't have both of them owning the decision. And that's
right,
just, we just said, okay, we're going to have some very direct conversations about this. And like, this is where passions can flare up, things can get heated, but just everyone understands we're all in this to make the best game possible. It's nothing personal. We're just trying to work our way through this.
okay,
Okay.
cool. Thanks.
All right, no problem. All right, El Niblador, we got time for one question.
Perfect. From the chat, in your experience, do game studios embrace this mindset of giving the space needed for problem solving, or is there pressure in terms of time?
Oh, this is a so this is the thing. These two, the pressure in terms of time and this approach to problem solving, they're linked together. They're both after the same thing. The reason why I'm encouraging this approach is because you will get better designs done faster. Like I said, it's a lot faster to go around the brick wall than to try to ram through it head first. So, um, generally, I find a lot of really good design studios tend to really embrace this. Like this is, one of the things that you see within a studio like Nintendo is they give people time to creatively think about things. Shigeru Miyamoto will go for a walk through I think it's the Torii Gates in Kyoto. I believe it's the name of them. It's a big several kilometer long hiking trail with several red Shinto gates that are around it. And that's just because like that's part of the creative process. Now, at the same time, I also believe you need to have strict deadlines. Strict deadlines keep you focused and keep you accountable. I think it can be very problematic to be like to give a creative all the time and resources in the world, because then they'll just eat them up. You can always make an argument that this will be better if I had more time, and as a result, you just never ship anything. And there are some studios that are successful with that, but you'll find the studios that are able to maintain a tension between creativity and resources at healthy tension are much more effective. You just, you can't have projects taking forever and eating up endless resources. Like this is one of the, I think one of the, in my opinion, one of the big issues you've got with, oh my God, what is it? It's that giant sci-fi space sim that I think Chris Roberts is working on.
Star Citizen.
Star Citizen, yeah, Star Citizen. They've got no limitations, and so they just spiral endlessly in infinite number of directions. And you can always make an argument for things being better. But they also just showed their gameplay, and a lot of people are just kind of scratching their head, being like, "Man, this looks really unfinished still." You've got to have those limits. Creativity is all about tension and communication. All right, we're gonna carry on. All right, we're going a little long here. All right, just a second. Let me just this. Okay. So, all right. So, I want us to do a quick meditation just to get you guys comfortable with the concept and a little familiar with it. So, this is our little interactive elements about this with this class is that we're going to do a quick 60-second meditation. Let me get up my stopwatch here. So I want us to do 2 of these because I want you to see how you think about a problem before, for the first time, and the second time. So what I want you guys to do right now is I want you guys to think about the game you're designing in your workbook. I want you to really focus on the biggest problems you're having with that design. I want you to be aware of what your customer experience is. I want you to really try to anchor on that. So everyone be thinking about the game you're making, what you want to do with it, what the problems you have with it are. Then we are going to meditate for 60 seconds on this. So for those of you who are following along at home, you can, meditate as well. So, all right. Hopefully you've all taken the time to really anchor onto your design goals and what you want to achieve here. Now what I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes. Don't think about anything for the next 60 seconds. You're just to focus on your breathing. Just listen to your breathing, going in, going out. All right, here we go. 60 seconds, starting now. All right, there we go. All right, so how did everyone find that experience? Did anything start to kind of surface for you guys there? So someone did notice that, yes, that is a pixel alarm sound for the phone. Aside from that, but anyways, let's see. Okay. Yeah, so the 60 seconds was a little short. Normally you'd want to do this for about 5 minutes, but I want to give you guys a little tiny taste of meditation. It is a muscle you want to develop into practice. And like I said, for a lot of people, it's good meditative practice may not be directly meditating, but also going for a walk or just engaging something where you're able to just kind of have an activity, you can have your soft focus and just allow your subconscious to chew over on things. All right, now we're going to do this twice, but I want to be respectful of your guys' time. So I think we're just going to do it just the once for those. So I want to jump into our next topic, which is language and design. I'm actually just looking at chat. I know a few people are finding the meditation a little challenging. If you can get into it's like I said, it's a practice, it's a discipline. Think of it as like developing a muscle. All right, so I want to jump into our next topic of going away from the subconscious over to language and design. So I'm referring to this as the frontier of design. So when I'm talking with other, professional designers, some of which have got a much more distinguished careers than I do, this is a topic that we are actually starting to come back to. And this is something that I think we're starting to find a lot of really interesting elements in, which is what I want to discuss with you guys about. Because I want you guys to be aware of, like, at the absolute frontier of design, these are the kind of things that we're starting to discuss. So ultimately, language shapes your cognitive tools. So one of the fundamental ways you interact with the world is language, and language shapes the way we view the world and how we try to solve problems. So think about this. Remember, in your game, you're designing a game, if I give the player a gun, I will see the world as a series of targets. If I give them a shovel, they're looking at places to dig. Paintbrush, they're looking for things to paint. Taking a step back from that to abstract that out a little bit more, I interact with a lot of the world via my language. The structure of that language predisposes me to examine problems in a specific way. So, in particular, we're going to be going into the structure of English, because that's the language we're all speaking here. But this is a common element across all languages. All languages have different structures and different ways of predisposing you towards approaching a problem. So, one thing with English is a very strong noun and verb structure. So the dog is running. The weight is heavy. Or would it be like the weight is heavy? It's like you have a thing, and then we are describing the thing. So as a result of this, within English, we have a real, bias towards isolating and classifying things. It is, I want to look at a system, I want to say it's a specific thing with specific properties. That allows us to take that noun verb structure of English and properly describe how to interact with objects. But this has got it's got pluses, it's got some minuses. So a good example of this is genre in a game. This is actually something I've noticed you guys discussing in our Discord community, is as we're talking about what genre your game is, you start to realize that genre is a really difficult thing to nail down, because like here's Mario. This is a platformer, an RPG. It's literally called Mario RPG. It's a racing game. But if you look at them, are these all Mario games? Is Mario itself a genre? Like, it kind of is. Clearly, I can tell what a Mario racing game is versus not. There's a difference between Mario Kart and Gran Turismo, even though they're both racing games, even though they've got the same classification. But if I dive into Mario Kart, there's elements there of racing, but there's also elements of action and platforming. These classifications quickly break down when you really analyze them. Now, that isn't to say the classifications aren't important. They're limited. But we do have this linguistic system where we're trying to isolate and classify things. So this is a powerful tool within the language. We've got an example here of assembly line of like the Ford Motor Company. English has enabled an approach that has been very, very good at manufacturing things and producing things. There's an excellent philosophical dialogue of Heidegger, who is a European philosopher, going over to a philosophy school in Kyoto. And he was like, English is very, very good at classifying things and very good at making stuff. Japanese is very, very good at dealing with possibilities, a possibility space. It's like, neither of these are a complete solution. We need it. Like, you don't get a good solution by fusing them together. You get a good solution by respecting both of their strengths. I always like to think of it, these are like tools in a tool belt. Some problems are really well handled via English. Some problems are really well handled via Hindi. Some problems are really well handled via Japanese. This is this is why I said this is kind of at the frontier of design thinking, because this is a very complex problem. But as I started talking with other designers, one thing that we all realize is that we have a tough time discussing design problems, elements of design problems with English. So again, this is the thing, within English, we really like classifying and measuring things. Like, man, I as a designer, I cannot tell you what a 96 Metacritic is. I can tell you some guesses, but you would quickly be able to poke all sorts of holes in those. Rotten Tomatoes is super popular, but even this, this little infographic here about the Rotten Tomatoes movie score, it shows how difficult it is to actually measure that and how easy it is to actually game this kind of system. Students get grades with the U.S. educational system we have here. You divide students into specific measurable values based on their date of birth, because it's a very easy thing to measure, and it's useful, but it also is an incomplete picture. But this is just kind of the solutions that English tries to pull us towards. So that's very effective in a lot of things, but the problem I have is a lot of design solutions are not easily measurable. And as a result, it feels like a lot of times there's a gap in the cognitive tools I have available to me when I'm trying to discuss a design language from kind of that English perspective. Like we said, like Mario Brothers is just weird. There's very little there I can measure to tell you what a good game is going to be. You can't take elements of Mario, transplant them into a different game, and have that work. You cannot take the items from Mario Kart, put them into Gran Turismo, and have that function. And trust me, a lot of teams tried that, and the market did not respond positively. These are all complex interactions, and they're very sophisticated. And this is this is kind of at the frontiers of design thinking, because this is something like in the design community, we're just starting to kind of realize this now, and we're starting to have these conversations about, okay, how does language structure our approach to design? I've been finding this fascinating because this was something I was like kind of wrestling with for decades. And then as we started to kind of realize the influence language was having on this, we're like, oh, okay, now we've got a better idea of how the overall problem space is. Okay, so dive in there. So you might ask, is there a preferred language for design? Design deals with a lot of the interaction of complex systems, and long short of it, no, there isn't an ideal language for design. They're all different tools in the tool belt. However, there is a language group that is starting to become very interesting. And this is, again, one of those things where I've talked with like designers from like, the Lego Corporation or other like people who have really proven their bona fides. We've actually started to discuss these kind of things. In particular, what we're looking at are the structure of indigenous languages and indigenous cultures. So this is Esquiliot, Cree, Inuit, Dene, Ojibwe, dozens of different languages, all of a common family. Because one of the interesting things we're starting to realize with these languages and with the cultural representations within indigenous communities. So these are the indigenous people of North America and other indigenous communities around the world as well. But being in Canada, the indigenous communities I'm able to most directly learn from are the ones that we have kind of, in the here and now. Is a lot of what they're discussing and representing are about the interaction of complex systems. Like, we've got a picture here on the left of a bear with a sunset and mountains and forests. This isn't a bear with a landscape painted on it. This is a natural representation that is embodying nature itself, and like it's a profoundly in-depth representation that is about the interaction of animals and how they have internalized natural systems. Natural systems themselves are this is the thing. This is where he says at the front, I don't fully understand what I'm looking at here, but it's fascinating. I think the depiction on the right's a little easier to, on the right is a little easier to nail down. We have a woman here. She is involved in some kind of circular, a circular interaction with the sun. She is holding part of it in her hand. That's going to the sun. Back to her. Her clothing itself has embodied elements of the natural world. So those are flowers, plants, grasses. Her hair is a specific pattern. That pattern cascades through her dress. It is also represented on the interior of the sun. This is about the interactions of several complex systems and how you can show them effectively. This is really fascinating stuff. And like I said, this is the stuff that is at the edge of the current kind of design thinking that we're starting to engage with. Because this is about the interaction of complex systems, and that's what design's all about. So, carrying on. So, applying this within actual design. So we have actually been looking at application of these kinds of systems. It's been quite exciting. We've had lots of really neat stuff that's coming together. So I've got a project I've been working on that's trying to take inspiration from these and trying to push my abilities as a designer and trying to pull on some of these, what we now understand about the relationship between design and language. So we're now looking at approaching design fundamentally as the interaction of complex systems. So instead of saying that we have got feature X, Y, and Z for genres A, B, and C, it's like we are going for an abstract emotional experience. How do we get different teams, viewpoints, and perspectives interacting with that so that we're all going towards kind of this shared goal? So we're also getting much more interested in the resulting interactions as opposed to the measurements of said interactions. I want to see people communicating, interacting. We started it's been really fascinating because we start having our discussions start to transition towards elements that are cross-cultural and mythological. So we start discussing about elements of this is a really good, if you look at the cognitive model of something like I believe it's a Hindu god Kali, or looking at oh my god, like the Greek legend of Prometheus, and we start to understand these kind of mythological interactions, how these express themselves across cultures, and how we can then represent these within our design. We start to see really compelling and exciting results. One of the best things I love about this is that as we get people onto these teams and we get them thinking about this, I get a lot of people working they're getting really engaged in this kind of stuff. I'll be up late working on this stuff, and other people be up late working on this stuff. We're like, oh, this is so cool. Seeing how the stuff's starting to lock together and come and emerge. It's been really exciting. But a lot of this has been okay, instead of us trying to isolate and classify things, let's look at these as interactions of complex systems, and we'll be focusing on enabling that and seeing what kind of reveals out of that. And then applying the subconscious as a guide. So a lot of this is about instead of trying to rationally approach this stuff, we are looking at this from a more abstract perspective. So yeah, I've got a project I'm working on with this taking this approach right now. The results have been very promising, and I'm going to continue to kind of dig into this overall design approach, starting to just do a lot more research into indigenous culture and philosophy, because I'm finding all sorts of really awesome cognitive tools there. But I want to share this with you guys because, as I said, this is us going into the absolute frontiers of design, and for me, this is the most exciting stuff for design right now. All right, Omnivlador, do we have any more questions?
None have come up in the chat yet.
Okay.
Oh,
there we
as
go.
I said that, there goes two. So, what they would like to know is an effective trick for narrowing down the process with exploration games and survival games. Would it be wise to let playtesters tell me what genre they think my game is?
Oh, no.
Genre assignment.
Yeah, excellent question there. So let me think. Within that, I think it's very good to look at genre as a means to an end. Try to understand your final experience you're trying to get there out of the player, and then usually I find I'm looking at that. What's the experience we want the player to have? And then I'm pulling in like design tools to support that. And generally, these tools will cluster around genres. But I never find myself directly trying to copy a genre. Oh, we are making a RPG. We are making a racing game. Well, I want to. It's like, well, I want to make a game about exploration and survival, but to having that set against fragility and the natural world, or what have you. And then from there, I'm pulling in different design elements, and I generally find those design elements tend to cluster around genres. But it's also you get a lot more of that freedom and that design innovation that you get with like, hey, how do we do a racing game that is also a Mario game? It's like, well, it's not a scientific formula; it's an experiential goal you're working towards. So I would, but uh, never let in a certain way like you ought to listen to playtesters, but playtesters are very bad at telling you what the game should like directly telling you what the game should be. If I'm in a playtest, I never ask a playtest, well, what would you like to have happen? It's like, okay, what did you find frustrating? What would you like to do? These sorts of things. From that information, I, as a designer, am figuring out what the design should be to incorporate the feedback from the playtest. But like, playtesters will do a good job of telling you where they're at. They cannot tell you where they want to go, though. Okay, any other questions?
Yes. What kind of resources do you use to gain informed info on these cross-cultural matters?
Reading. That's a big one. Just, reading. Also, just reaching out to people in the community. Like, when I started to talk about this with other, as I started to get really interested in indigenous philosophy and those kind of like dealing with those complex systems, I would just look at, I know a indigenous run art house and coffee shop. I'm just going to go over there. I'll introduce myself and see if someone would be willing to have a chat. And it was a little weird, but eventually, like, it's like look at like I'm here because I want to learn about this stuff. This is motherfucking fascinating. Please teach me. I really want to understand this stuff, and make sure that I'm properly, that I am not operating on any presumptions, or I am, taking my ego out of the equation and going in very willing to learn and willing to listen, but also willing to just ask a lot of questions and just be like, look, I don't understand how this is working. Could you please slow it down? Explain it to me. Is it like this? Well, what about this approach? What about this? I had this wonderful discussion with an indigenous artist who was talking about being in an elementary school, and he would do a math test, and after he finished the math test, he'd start drawing the art of the math, and I was like, that's just so fucking cool, man. But unfortunately, the teacher quickly came around and said, don't do that. This is not art class. This is math class. I was like, oh, it was brilliant right there, and it got smacked down. But it's been really, really cool. But yeah, this is the thing. It's like, just do reading. Reach out where you're capable, where you can. Always give people a chance to say no and tell them to fuck off. And that's actually my introduction with a lot of these things. Like, hi, I'm Matt. I do design. I want to find out about this, but if ever I'm being obnoxious and you want me to get the fuck out of the room, you let me know and I'm gone. And usually we'll have a laugh and they'll be like, okay, what would you like to know? And I'm like, look, I'm trying to understand this. There are these problems here. I'm really curious about these kind of things. Or like, is there stuff I should know about this that I'm just not asking, And you just think, hey, look at this artist, look at this writer, look at this myth. And then you just start having a conversation, you hang out and you chill. It can be a lot of fun. But, of course, approach it respectfully. Don't make fucking demands. All right, Scott. Scott.
I think he's muted.
Possibly. Scott, you might be muted. Oh, we lost Scott. Okay.
YouTube. Yes. When
Okay.
the question, when I'm not really trying to narrow down to a specific genre, then marketing the game
Okay.
toward a specific genre.
Okay. Sorry, Scott. We get to you in just a second. We got another
Yep.
question here. So, marketing a game to a specific genre. Marketing game to a specific genre. Oh, I think it's important to give your customers a good idea of what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Um, the would be Now, this is an error I see a lot of game developers make is they try to communicate their game based on rational minds. It's an RPG that's got 8 character classes, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of customers just aren't interested in that. They really want to know about the high level experience. I would bring in elements of genre and that kind of stuff as like said. Remember that the last week's homework assignment, you set your emotional hook and then you back it up with just enough information to justify them making an action. So that would be a thing. I would not start off with the genre. I would use the genre as part of my justification, just to give them an idea of, okay, what exactly am I doing here? And this has actually been like one of the fun things with this little experimental design project is that we've got a lot of people very engaged, and we've been aggressively holding off, telling them exactly what they're going to be doing as part of this game, because we want to get that emotional engagement and nail that. Then we'll come in with a bit of information about exactly what it is. Okay, Scott.
Okay, yes, Mike's working now.
Cool. Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so this seems to be a great equalizer, this design approach, because I doubt anyone's going to have 3 to 5 years experience doing that, right? But the question is, how would you recommend that we demonstrate this or communicate our aptitude in this, in resumes or for portfolios, obviously get this something you can talk to in an interview, but
Oh,
before that, how you convey, hey, I take this approach and this is effective and, and whatnot. I mean, because I could jump right on your team with having 0 years of experience in gaming, right,
yeah,
and
yeah.
do
So,
this and come up with amazing things, but 3 to 5 years experience is
yeah,
usually the gatekeeper.
yeah. So this is not something I would put anywhere on a resume or anything like that.
Mhm.
Where this shows up on the resume is on the quality of the work you've got. It's like this is the thing is like when people like put on the resume like, hey man, by applying this approach, you're going to get outsized results in your game development approach. You're going to get really good results, and you can directly point to those results in your resume. And they'll be like, well, how did you even do that? You're like, well, let me tell you about how I approach design problems, and then you can go
Right.
into this entire thing. But this is the thing. Uh, this becomes appealing to employers in so much as the actual work you've developed. That's the thing. Any kind of job application, you've got to be leading with, hey, this is what I've done in the past. Look at how good this has been. Don't you want me doing this for you guys?
Yeah. Okay.
That's
So
what gets you the job.
portfolio is number
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
exactly. That's the thing.
Thought processes for portfolio, is that helpful, or is it just
If it comes up in the
visual?
interview, possibly, but
Yeah.
ultimately you got to be showing that you've been able to deliver the goods. So that's the thing,
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. Okay. All right. We're past the hour mark, so I want to carry on. We're going to circle back and do some more questions. So we're going to go over some quick takeaways for the lesson. Takeaway 1, subconscious is a powerful engine for creativity and problem solving. But it requires data and an objective, so you got to give it a lot of information and then point it towards something. So it's enabled by meditation, but suppressed by rational thought. That is not to say that the rational thought has no place in problem solving. It's got a lot of places in problem solving. But for a lot of really hard problems, if ever I'm stuck, I will switch over to meditation. I'll go for a walk. I'll have my coffee. I'll stare at a lake, clean your apartment, take a shower. You do you. Just stop trying to get to the brick wall by hitting your head against it. So takeaway number 2. So language is how we build cognitive tools for interacting with the world, whether that is English or Hindi or Japanese or Mandarin or Spanish. Because we use language to interact with the world, the structure of that language will predisposes to a specific type of problem solution. That is not that it is flawed, but like I said, think of it as like different tools in in your tool belt. If all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail. But you want to have a hammer, a saw, a paintbrush, a level, etc., etc. So English has a strong noun-verb structure, which is why we like isolating, classifying things so much in English. You know, this is this specific genre, it is this specific Metacritic, it is this specific features, this number of hours of content, etc., etc. The structure of your design language dictates how you approach problems. So just be aware of that as you're starting to get into tougher and tougher design problems. All right, we're going to go into a bit of homework. So what I want you to do is we got homework 08A, and that's going to be, I want you guys to meditate on your design. Like I said, go for a walk, you, do whatever you find, or like just start to explore what are the things that you find are a positive meditative environment for you and get an understanding of that. Then I want you to simplify your design by 30% or more. Ask yourself, what's critical here? What's really essential? Let's really get this thing down and refined. You also have homework 08B, which is optional, our first optional assignment. That is, I just want you to read a book. I'm going to have a suggested reading list in the class folder. They're all generally pretty short reads of a variety of different subject matters and levels. I wanted you guys to start to internalize a healthy reading habit, or a healthy kind of like information consumption habit. And like it's not always just reading. Sometimes it's watching a movie, playing a game. If there was one form of media I would recommend to, if you just have one form of media to choose from, I would say absolutely read books. You're going to learn so much from reading books. I would also largely encourage go out and talk to people as well. That's super important. Someone says Mr. Shredder gets to eat again. Yes, Mr. Shredder's eating good this week. All right. Someone in class saying they're going to go for a class. Going for a bike ride after class. Absolutely. All right. So now we got our assignments. Does anyone else have any questions? Someone wants to know who Mr. Shredder is. I think it was Wendy Woodchipper in an earlier class. Just personifying the object that is taking all of your best laid design plans and utterly wrecking them. This is an important thing. Don't be pressured about your designs, because more often than not, when you're in development, you'll be asked to take things away more so than add them in. So you just got to be really good at being like, yep, I'm on that. We're going to absolutely half this, reduce it by 10%, reduce it by 20%, consolidate these levels, reduce these features, scope adjust, scope adjust, scope adjust. All right. So Harshad, you got a question?
Yeah, so we have a good framework on how to approach, solving a problem and this entire process that we've been through. But what are the things that we should avoid doing, and what shouldn't we do? Sort of put ourselves in a rut, or put ourselves in a situation where we are looping around and not able to sort of get through the problem.
Deadlines.
Deadlines.
Deadlines. Like that's the thing. One of the that indigenous artist I was talking with. Brilliant guy, loved chatting with him. We just talked for hours and hours. It was like a ton of fun. But he had his very first art show, and he showed up for it. He's like, yeah, all this came together in like the last 2 days. He's like, I was doing nothing. And then they refused to move the date, and I was like, oh my God. It was pretty good things. And like perhaps it wasn't exactly that, but that's the thing. Having a deadline is super critical. That's actually, like I said, one of the things in my current design practice. It's every week we have a deadline. And that's also one of the things we do in the Design Professionals program. Every week you have a deadline at a specific time, and that deadline does not move. And like I've had like a lot of students be like, oh, like I'll just be late. I'm like, no, you don't get to be late for this. It's got to have something there. And I don't think we've ever had anyone miss the playtest. And it's certainly a pain in the ass, and it's frustrating. But man, like their stuff came together so quickly because we just don't allow those deadlines to move. Okay. And there's of course exceptions to that, but in about 2 years of having this approach, I've never had to execute those exceptions. But like absolutely, if there's a massive earthquake or the power infrastructure gets shut down, yes, we'll miss the deadline. But we probably were missing it by a very small amount, you know. So yeah, that's the things to make sure that you know, and be comfortable with the fact that you will not always be doing your best work. Because if you are constantly focused on always doing your best work, you will never ship. You'll never ship. You'll never finish because it can always be better. And also, like I've found so many times where I've had my back up against the wall and we're 2 hours from like deadline, and I'm like, oh man, we are 20% done on this problem. It's like, oh great, going for a walk. I'm gonna step away from this. Gonna look at it, and they're like, oh, this is what we're gonna do. You know, we'll just do this, and you know, it's like, you know, an example like in Jaws, the shark not working, and they're just like, yeah, we just won't show the shark as much, and we'll just focus on the people.
Okay.
It just worked out a lot better, you know. So yeah, deadlines are key for that.
Thanks.
All right, no problem. Okay, any other questions?
Is one, what is the plan B for when we simply can't find the eureka moment through these mental frameworks with deadlines closing in?
Oh, a plan B is farm the idea out to your team. So just be like, hey guys, I'm having a hard time figuring this out. This is what we're trying to do. These are the, you know, this is our goal. These are our constraints. Do you guys have any thoughts on this? And this is actually one of the things I'll do with design right now as well, is that we are constantly socializing the current state of design with the rest of the team, because I want everyone thinking about this so that when I'm stuck up against the wall, someone will be like, yeah, I've been thinking about that. What if you were to do this instead? And I'm like, okay, great solution. Let's get that going. And then sometimes also, if it looks like we're going to be missing a deadline, make sure the executive team's aware of that. I just say, hey, you know what? It's not coming together. We're going to have something for you, but not the exact thing that we're looking for. And honestly, like a lot of games ship with things being imperfect. I was I was just playing a major AAA game that I've been bored silly with, and I'm like, I swear these mechanics were something that they could never figure out, and they just shipped what they had. It was, because I think they're honestly this game. I think they're on the edge of something pretty brilliant, and maybe it gets better later on in the game. But for right now, I'm like, this is clearly a mechanic that they weren't able to figure out, or more concerningly, they thought they had figured out and they never play tested it, because if they did, they would have realized they had something that was not interesting or engaging. Okay.
It's a question about the homework.
Yeah, the homework. Yes. So the homework, the week 8 homework. Yes, I'll be revising that after this class. That is a placeholder document in there right now. That should have the access turned off for it, but I'll be getting that revised. So that'll be getting revised probably in about an hour or so.
And just one last quick question about agency. What do you think about giving the player the means and the game space to find the solution to a problem and let them figure it out on their own way without heavy tutorial?
Yes, that is how you should always be doing it. Absolutely. I'm not against tutorials. I'm against heavy-handed tutorials. A really good tutorial should be completely invisible to the user. Engaging with this, the game or the experience or the product should just be so, push button stupid. There's just no need for a tutorial. But getting it to that point is a very, very tough design challenge. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Just double checking here. Okay. I think, yes. So tell people in chat saying to engage with our community. We have a very, very just excellent community here within our FDI Discord. I'm super impressed with all you guys. And, if ever you want feedback on your design or have your back up against the wall against something, reach out to the community here. Lots of people there that are there to help, because all good designers are here to help. Okay. Carrying on. So, just a reminder. Oh, Scott, you got a question?
Yeah. So for our assignment, right now, we're just filling in lists of stuff on a spreadsheet.
Yes.
Are we going to be getting to a point where we'll be putting that into a more formalized game design document? Or are we just focusing on just refining the idea?
Excellent, Scott. You're focused on refining the idea. That we'll be making that a little more formal next week. But to give you a peek behind the curtain, the reason why we're doing this structure is I want you guys to see the evolution of your idea across time through multiple lenses. That also really helps on my side as I'm evaluating the designs. And be like, oh, okay, I can see you had this goal. It was this great big abstract thing, and then it's got sharper, clearer.
Okay.
And that's why we kept looking at it from different ideas and different concepts. So
Cool, thank you.
we are keeping within this document. We're going to give it a bit more structure for next week. But yeah, we'll just be continuing to refine this idea. Okay. Cool. All right. So, just a reminder, we do have the Design Professional program in this Thursday. Oh, we have one more question here. Oh, the recommended reading list will be in the folder for this week's class. So there should be a placeholder document in there right now that is currently empty. That'll be getting filled out in the hour as well. So that's where you guys are going to be finding that. So just a quick reminder. Starting in February, we have the Design Professional program to help you guys start your design career. That'll be starting in February 2025. 4-month program. You'll take a game from concept to launch it on Steam. You're going to be featured at SteamCon or GamesCon Canada and at a Steam event. And also, you'll get to present your game to employers. Tuition is $11,000 USD, $50,000 Canadian. So that's going to, in 6 months, where do you want your life to be? Any questions? There's our email address.